Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special, super special edition of the eDiscovery channel with Tom O'Connor, and you'll notice a big blank on the top of the screen here where Rocky usually sits, and he's not here because Rocky's off doing something important in Baltimore, which I hope involves crab cakes and National Bohemian beer.
Or he's boycotting me, one of the two.
Or he's at the baseball. Maybe the Orioles are playing.
Oh,
yeah,
something
important. But with me today is Doug Austin, who really, if you don't know who Doug Austin is, then I don't know what you've been doing for the last 10 years, but certainly not reading anything about eDiscovery on the internet, because Doug, I mean, now you're really embarrassing us because you're doing like 3 or 4 a day. All right. I mean, it used to be, well, 5?
2 most days, 3 occasionally. Of course, not everyone's like a from scratch post, so it's not as. But yeah, I mean, it's the job. Got to provide daily content, so that's what I do.
Well, yeah, that's nice to say, but lots of us go to our job and sit at the desk reading Calvin and Hobbes, you know. So kudos to you. And I'm sorry, eDiscovery Today is the official title. Just again, for folks who maybe have been in a complete brain fog for the last 10 years or so. Well, how long has it been now with eDiscovery Today? You were
so it's been 2 years, a little over 2 years, 3 months. So
right.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then how long in the previous incarnation?
9.5 years, almost 10.
Okay.
Yeah, so, over 9.5 years. So
yeah,
I've been blogging almost 12 years now, daily blogging. So,
and what we decided to get together for today was to talk about ILTACON. ILTACON22 is by the time this little discussion gets released, will be about 3 weeks out. We're coming up on it here. August 21st is the official first day.
That's
August
right.
21st. Yeah. National Harbor, Maryland, which is just down the river from Washington, D.C., just outside the BART line or the train line, whatever they call it out there.
Right.
Up there for me.
And me.
And you as well, yeah. Last time I was there, I don't know if this is still going on. They were in the middle of some huge renovation project on the train lines, and had like eliminated half the routes. Like, you know, if it used if the train used to come every hour, now it was only coming like every 2 hours or something. It was a fiasco. Now, granted, that was like 2.5 years ago. So we hope that they've taken advantage of the lack of people out going to work every day over the last 1.5 years to get that work done. But that's going to be interesting to see.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I guess it was it 2019 when we last convened? No, 2018, I think, when we last convened there, at least for ILTA, because 2019 was Florida.
2019 was the fabulous Swan and Dolphin. It was such a big show. They had to have 2 hotels to do.
Exactly. Yes. And then of course they missed the pandemic. Was all virtual, and then last year in Vegas, which was a good show. Just unfortunately, a lot of people weren't in person for it because the Delta variant was at its peak then.
Yes, I was one of those. I had planned to go, and the variant took off, and I just honestly, part of it was the fact that it was Vegas, which was one of the 3 hot spots in the country at the time as well. The city itself was not aggressively doing anything to enforce restrictions, and that was troublesome. So I just decided to hold off. So, and that's, I guess, part of the discussion. We're hoping we'll see a resurgence this year, right? That this will be a comeback show, if you will. Not so much for the content, as you said. The content was great last year, as always, but trying to get people to get in there. I think we seem to have reached. Nobody's using the phrase anymore, but we seem to have reached a situation of either herd immunity or semi-herd immunity, where people, even when they're getting infected now, are not getting it very seriously.
Right.
The latest variants seem to be transmitting quite easily, but people are getting a mild case of flu. Even the president the other day had it for a couple of days and then tested negative. So there seems to be at least a feeling that the vaccinations did what they're supposed to do. Although we're coming up on the time, I think, where there's going to be a need for a whole new wave of vaccinations. These ones are going to run their course, just like getting the flu vaccine every year. But I think ILTA is going to get in under any COVID problems. My concern, Doug, and tell me what you're hearing, is a lot of people just don't have travel budget.
Right. And that, I mean, obviously one of the challenges now is, earlier in the year, when I went to Legal Week, flights were cheap, hotels were reasonable, but everything's gone up. Obviously, the gas prices and the fuel prices have risen, flight costs dramatically, and so yeah, absolutely, it's become a travel budget question for a lot of companies out there, a lot of firms, a lot of even a lot of providers are kind of either not going or sending less people or kind of picking and choosing a little bit more which conferences they go to.
Yeah, and then part of that mix, of course, is though even though it's in or adjacent to Washington D.C., I don't know that anybody, I don't know that any government agencies have travel budget at all to go and do anything. I mean, just the government has cut back on so much overall over the last 7-8 years that are people going to be willing to take a day off on their own time and spend their own dime even to go for a day? I just don't know, which would be unfortunate, because one of the big attractions to me of the show has always been when it's at National Harbor, a great attendance from government people.
Absolutely.
I hope we don't lose that completely. I guess the other thing is, like you said, there's certainly the mix between law firms and corporations, and what that's going to shake out to. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if you have, about what the mix is so far, but
I haven't heard what the mix is. In glancing through the list of speakers, it seems like a majority of them are either law firm or provider. I didn't see a ton of corporate speakers. Obviously, some companies, if you haven't heard of them, you're not sure if they're a corporation or a provider, because but it does seem like ILTA's always had a pretty good, strong law firm, following, and it certainly seems to again this year. I don't know what level of corporate attendance there will be. One would hope there would be a fair amount of government attendance, since it is there, and this is probably I would say this may be my favorite venue there that they host ILTACON in. It's one of my favorites because it's just it's a little more compact, and it's easy to get around, and the harbor's really it's a really beautiful spot. So yeah, I like, this is one of my favorite venues to go to.
Yeah, I would agree. Part of it is I think the proximity to DC, although unfortunately it's just outside of the train lines, you can get to a train, a public train, pretty easily. I generally stay right across the river in Alexandria because it's a very short. We've talked about this before. It's a short cab or Uber ride, very short, and there's also a water taxi which you can avail yourselves of, and there's more than a few people who stay over there and getting rides. Getting rides is not a big deal, so I like it. And although National Harbor has done a nice job, I think we've both eaten at every restaurant there at least half a dozen times over the last 10 years.
At least quite a few of them. I'm sure there are restaurants we haven't hit, or at least I haven't hit. You may have hit them, I don't know, but yeah, it is. There are some restaurants in there, and there's some really good restaurants. But yes,
yes, the food there is good. It's good. It's a nice setup, as opposed to some of the other gaylords that tend to be in remote locations where that isn't quite as true. Also, just the physical plant of that one, I think, is a little bit more attractive. I can't tell. I haven't looked at the room allocation or the room layout there. Maybe it's a little bit smaller. That might be part of it, but it just seems like a couple of the other Gaylords that I've been to, I feel like I'm, being at the Mandalay Bay, I have to walk a mile and a half to get to the lobby, to walk another mile and a half to get to the
Well, yeah. So, yeah, I think in the briefing that they had on Wednesday, they said this is the smallest footprint of any of the ILTA venues.
Okay.
And of course, last year we'll talk, I'm sure, a little bit about the past couple of years versus this year. Last year, I was among the people who did attend in person. I did go ahead and continue to attend, and was glad I did, even though it was a much smaller conference than normal. But I chose to stay at the Luxor to save a few bucks. And, and every time I'm walking over there, about halfway, my watch says, "It looks like you're working out. Do you want to record it?" And I'm like, "Okay." So, because you're trying to buzz a little, it's probably a good 15-20 minute walk over to, not just because it's not just to the Mandalay Bay. Then you have to get upstairs and to the where the
I love that. Yeah, because they say Gail and I had stayed there a number of times. If she wasn't exhibiting with somebody, for that very same reason. But they also say they have a tram. Well, you got to walk out to the front of the hotel to take the tram that drops you at the exact opposite corner from the exhibit hall of the Mandalay Bay, and you end up walking almost as far than if you just said, "Oh, yeah, all right, I'm going to go walk it."
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That was pretty funny, but
at least it was an indoor walk the whole way because they are connected. So there's that.
That's exactly right.
Vegas in August, not pleasant.
Not fun. The fact that it is an indoor walkway was a real bonus. Yeah, you're right. And then speaking of all that, no company secret here. You asked about how the registrations are going, and I've talked to a couple of people, and they said the key word is they're anticipating in the neighborhood of 1,100 or so paid members, and approximately an equivalent number of vendors, speakers, hangers on like us with press passes. So they're looking at an attendance in the 2,000 or so range, which would be good. Last year was tough, again, for no reason it was any of their fault. It was a health scare and a pretty drastic one. And I felt bad, reports I had from the exhibit hall where, the Raiders could have come in there and practiced in the exhibit hall and not disrupted anything that was going on at some point.
Yeah, I mean, so it was so I talked to some of the, and I don't know if they were trying to put a positive spin on it, some of the exhibitors there. They said one of the things that was nice about it was because it was quieter, you could actually hear yourself carry on a conversation, get in depth, as opposed to usually the exhibit hall is such a madhouse and so loud and so forth that it's hard to really, you almost kind of like make a connection and then agree to go somewhere else quiet to really talk about the prospects of the offering of the exhibitor or what have you, because it's hard to do in the in the exhibit hall. Obviously with less people you don't get the name recognition of being an exhibitor, but yeah, I mean they were truly snake bit last year because when they had decided we are committed to the in-person conference, it was at a point where Delta was just flaring up and the timing couldn't have been worse for them because they were at a point where they couldn't turn back. I mean, a couple of conferences
they had to come in.
Had enough, right? A couple, like ARMA last year was supposed to be in Houston. And I spoke on a panel there, and about I think 6 weeks before they said no, we're going to have to make it virtual because Delta was in the throes at that point. So yeah, they really got hit last year because of that, and then of course the year before it being a virtual conference. So they could really use a good, well attended conference, and I certainly hope they get it.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm hoping there'll be a surge, with a month to go before the show. A lot of late or last minute registrations, and maybe some dailies. Maybe some people can't take all 4 or 5 days, but can go for a couple. And I'm as always impressed with the educational sessions. It's been,
absolutely.
to my mind, the go-to educational conference in the space for a number of years, for the very simple reason that because it's a member organization, you get people who have real world experience with the issues they're discussing on the podium.
Right.
And so if you have 3 or 4 people on the podium, there may be one vendor talking about their experience, but you've got 2 or 3 people from the trenches, so to speak. So, and I'm really interested in that this year, with sessions on AI. And I noticed 2 separate sessions using the phrase, one used the phrase data scientists, and one used the phrase eDiscovery scientist. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some elucidation in those sessions from how people are really using an AI or an eDiscovery tool instead of the usual.
Right.
I'll leave it at that.
Right, exactly. I mean, so I agree completely with you, Tom. I also say that they really do a great job of having volunteers who are in the industry, who know,
Yes.
who not only do a great job of coordinating these sessions, but they I mean, they know the people who are doing these things. They work really well with them. They're very organized. The session that I moderated last year was on collaboration apps. We had a terrific panel. It was we had a couple of meetings to really coordinate and plan, and it really really wound up working out well. So as for AI, so I did a search of some kind of terms in our industry throughout the kind of the agenda to see kind of what I would see. And AI was the top term that I searched for, with 15 hits. And that was just AI. Actually, artificial intelligence, interestingly, only had 1. So everybody knows what AI is at this point. So they don't even bother saying artificial intelligence. That one was definitely, well, it was the second highest one. Discovery was first in terms of the terms I searched for. So they have a lot of litigation and discovery this year. They always have the litigation support roundtable, which is one of my.
I was going to mention that. That's always a great panel. And they, I believe, once again, we'll be releasing the results of their survey, their litigation support survey, which is a good one because it's a true, members-based, real user survey. But to counter that, of course, that's what I'm interested in, because that's an area that I work in. But it also, because their members are IT people, it isn't top heavy with litigation support or eDiscovery.
Right.
And
they seem to have a pretty steady track. One of the tracks seems to be pretty steady, discovery and litigation.
Yes.
And I'm glad that they're doing it that way, because if that's your focus, you can really continually go down that track.
Yes.
I don't like it when sometimes you have sessions against each other. You want to see one, you can't see them both, and it's kind of tough. So they've organized it quite well too.
Yep. And but again, I'm seeing things on document management and back end servers, and a wide range of subjects, so that you're not restricted to just one thing, and you're getting the advantage of the expertise of the people who've been doing this. So that's really the other thing I like about it, because it's a true member user group. Then you get the widespread interests of all the members are being attended to. The other one that caught my attention was, and it's one I was really glad to see, is I have not been happy with the impact of non-legal VCs in our profession, and their emphasis on non-legal things. In fact, they're oftentimes complete disdain for legal and how it operates and how we work. And so I was very happy to see a Six Sigma legal. I think it's 2 sessions. You know, that's
Right.
a great example of Six Sigma has been something that people who come in from non-legal tout it, and you know, I don't care about your certifications in relativity or, you know, reveal or whoever. You know, you should have a Six Sigma. Well, if it isn't geared for my profession, you know, I'm not demeaning its usefulness. Anything that's process oriented and helps you to be more effective is great. But now somebody's finally saying, yeah, all right, let's take that and tailor it to the legal environment. I was just really happy to see that, and I'm really interested in attending those. I think it's 2 sessions. I'm not sure.
It's 2 sessions on Thursday, I think, and yeah, and they do have a limit. I think it's limited to 100 people. So
yeah,
we don't know exactly. They didn't specify exactly how you try to register for that with those, because I think those are specific. But yeah, I think I was glad to see that too, and I definitely thought that was one of the highlights on this year's agenda. So
yep, and of course, something that was always near and dear to my heart, because when Gail was working with the vendor there, the opening night vendor reception, which is always a theme of
right.
one sort or another, that the vendors really get into in a really energetic way that draws people into that exhibit hall. And to me, it's a great kickoff for the vendor side of things. I think I read, correct me if I'm wrong, the theme this year is superheroes.
That's what I remember. Yeah, them
right.
talking about in the briefing. So yeah, I'm sure some companies will really take and run with that concept quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I still remember the year that we were in Nashville, and Gail was with the company back then, and had everybody in the booth do Pirates of the Caribbean, and she did Johnny Depp, which was, I mean, just walking from our room to the exhibit hall. Of course, Gail, being the shy thing that she was walking down the hallway waving the sword.
Did she recruit you in to be Barbossa? Because it seems like you would make a pretty good Barbossa. I'm just saying.
No, she attempted to. I deferred. I kept my neutrality.
Fair enough. Hanging around there made it seem like you were a part of it. So
that's right. So and the funniest thing was when they made the announcement, you know, it's only 2 hours to show, and you know, the exhibit hall will be closing in 15 minutes or something. Gail started running up and down the hallways again, swinging the sword, going, abandon ship.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But there are other vendors who also do, you know, a great job. They really get into the spirit of it.
Oh, sure.
And it is one of the most enjoyable vendor hall experiences at any show that I attend every year, and one that I look forward to every year. It's a lot of fun, and people really get, you know, people love to get dressed up, so it's like, you know.
Oh yeah, no, that's always fun. Of course, every time I think about that opening reception, that opening exhibit hall reception, I'll think about a few years ago when I had I just gotten to ILTA that day, and I was just about to go into the reception, and I got a text from my wife Paige that said, Carter fell off the monkey bars and broke his arm. And I thought,
no,
yeah, sure enough, he had fallen off the monkey bars and broke his arm, and he had to have surgery to fix it. And so ever since then, I think of, like, you know, walking in, think of that moment just a little bit, just kind of a side personal thing.
Of course.
But yeah, you know, for a while there was we joked that I couldn't leave to go to conferences because something would always happen.
Something's going to happen. Yeah.
I went to an ASEDS conference one year when they were still having those in New York, and there was terrible flooding here, and they lost power for like about 12 hours at the house, and it was just a real hassle. So yes, it's kind of one of those inside jokes we have. But thankfully nothing's happened in the past few years, and
keep him off the monkey bars
yes.
that Monday night, right? You know, lock him in his room.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's 14 now, so he's on bigger and better things. So yes, he's
the danger is even higher.
Right. Well, that's right. Exactly. Indeed.
So anything else that you're looking forward to? You know,
Well,
sessions, people.
So there's definitely several sessions. I haven't pinpointed all of them yet. There's one, unfortunately, I'm going to miss, and I hope next year they'll have it again, but move it. And I was actually going to try to pull it up before, so my apologies for being a little slow here. But it's like the very last slot on Thursday. It's eDiscovery Storytellers, Uncovering the Narrative Within Your Data. And that one sounds really interesting to me. So I hate that I'll miss that because I'm flying back mid-afternoon on Thursday. That wasn't the best slot because I think that one's a really intriguing concept. So
What time is that session?
That one's at 4 p.m. on Thursday. So it's against one of the Six Sigma ones. So, have to make a choice there. But I don't know if they will make recordings available because that's one I'd certainly love to come back and catch up on.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to see what my itinerary is. Yeah, I'm leaving Thursday 6:30. So man, that's gonna be close.
Yeah, that's it's a bit tough. But I mean, they have several. I mean, I like I like what I was told there'd be no math. Talking to lawyers about eDiscovery and data, Microsoft eDiscovery tools. Obviously, that's changing. I think Rocky's on that one. I think you said, or maybe I can't remember for sure. Oh, the eDiscovery scientist one. I thought, that you mentioned. There's really several very interesting, at least intriguing sessions. So I'm certainly going to try to attend several of them. So that's obviously one thing. Obviously, one of the biggest things you can manage to do great education in a virtual conference, but you can't really replicate the networking. And even last year, even as down as the attendance was, it was still great to network with people I knew in the industry. And that was, I think, really the first conference I had the opportunity to do that in. And so a lot of us who were there were still like, it's maybe not nowhere near the conferences of the past, but it's still great to get together with people and have meetings and, and have a couple of parties to attend and so forth. So, that's always one of the highlights for me is catching up with people, making some new contacts, seeing some old friends. And that's one of the things I'm certainly looking forward to.
Yeah, and again, the physical plant. I love that facility because they've got that wonderful out the back door there from the restaurant area. They've got that beautiful patio and then the rolling lawn down on the Potomac. And for those of us who are cigar smokers, it's ideal because we can go out there without irritating anybody and plenty of room to enjoy a cigar in the evening, but also a great place to just step outside and get some fresh air, pull up some chairs and talk to people. It is conducive. It is really conducive to that. So, or take a walk, just take a walk, like you said, down into the restaurant area in the harbor and grab an ice cream cone or something.
Exactly.
It is, I think of all of the facilities, the one that's the most conducive to that sort of networking. So it's good. And as I recall, a lot of the companies, when they do an event, they'll get down into one of those restaurants. They'll leave the hotel, and because it's so close, it's easy for people to walk to. So
there's a number. So with a number of restaurants you can walk to, it makes it nice because you don't have to go very far. It's kind of convenient. People have have happy hours at a couple of bars around in that area as well. So it's a good location. Like I say, it's one of my favorite locations. I think one other thing from the conference itself standpoint, I'm interested in. I don't even know exactly how if it's open to the public, how you get into it. But they're going to have a investment hub this year, and people and like startup companies actually doing like Shark Tank type presentations. So
interesting.
And I think that's Thursday. And if there's a way to get into that and watch a little bit of that, I think that would be very interesting to see.
It'd be fun to watch. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
because I'm always intrigued as to what investors are looking for, and so and obviously they've got their startup hub, and they've got a bunch of startups involved in that, and a bunch of those are doing these presentations. So I'm hoping to catch, if that is available, widespread, catch a couple of those. So
that raises a good point. You mentioned it, but just to make sure that I highlight that as well, there is a startup alley. They've got, I think, 15 booths for new companies,
exactly.
Which is great, because I think getting them some exposure and getting them out in front of people, especially these are IT people primarily,
right?
And so they get good feedback. I wouldn't do that quite that way, or maybe the positronic
Absolutely.
thrusters need to be tweaked a little bit on that one. So,
right, yes, because there are thrusters in legal technology, of course. So yeah, absolutely. I think the startup alley is always a great thing. Their startup hub, and they also do have a number of companies giving updates. So it's if there's a company particularly, they've got several that are doing it. If there's a company you're particularly interested in, you can sit in on one of those, and that get a sense of where they're going and what's going on with their tech and so forth. So to me, there's no shortage of things to do, education wise, and trends wise, things of that nature.
Yeah. And when do you arrive?
I get in Sunday evening, so I will unfortunately miss the opening reception, the Sunday reception, but I will be there all day. I will be there all day, Monday through Wednesday, and leaving about midday Thursday. So almost the entire conference.
Pretty much the same for me. I get in, I think I might get a little bit earlier on Sunday, but probably just coinciding with the beginning of the reception. And are you staying at the hotel at the Gaylord, or are you staying?
I'm staying right across the street at the Residence Inn, so which I've stayed at once or twice before. I mean, it's literally, it's like you're outside for like 30 seconds or a minute to get one to the other. It's that close. So
I've been to a few business meetings over there, and it's extremely convenient. Like I said, I'm going to be staying over in Alexandria, but by the end of the day, I mean, it's just a hotel room.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean that the rooms are set. If it turns out that I wind up having a couple of meetings that are the best place to meet is my room, and then obviously I've got the setup for it. So that was one of the considerations. I thought I wanted to have that option, because I do. One of the things that I have observed is that companies do ping you when you're pressed and they want to talk to you about what's going on with them. So that's nice to be able to kind of stay up with what's going on with the companies out there. So
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we've hit all the highlights. Can't think of anything else anything that was discussed at the briefing the other day that we haven't mentioned.
Well, I think one of the things that, and I can't remember the exact term, they were talking about health and safety and awareness, and they said be aware of not being overserved, and I thought that was kind of funny. It's inevitably somebody will be, unfortunately, but
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of, it's just good to watch yourself in that regard. And so I kind of found it funny that they had to point that out, because one would think people would know, but then like I say, it happens every year.
No, I didn't go to legal week in New York. I was told that several of the parties there were packed, as always. And people get away from home and they start to imbibe, and it's easy to lose track, I guess. Luckily I don't have to worry about it, because I don't start with the first one. So
right, exactly, yeah,
they overindulge on Diet Coke,
right.
But yeah, it is unfortunate. But what's good is that people in the organizations are starting to say that, instead of just ignoring it. I wish they would go one step further I'm not an ILTA member, so I don't have a venue to bring this up. The ABA at their annual meeting for years has an AA meeting every morning at like 7 a.m. on site. And the ABA Tech Show, after years of gentle persuasion by myself and several other people, started doing it just the year before COVID. And to their credit, had continued it even in the hybrid. Right? They're doing hybrid AA meetings. I think there's just an awareness now that sobriety in general, whether it be alcohol or drugs or mental health issues, that the mental well-being of your colleagues is important to everybody. Just for the general good of the organization, of the meeting, of your friends, and so to bring that up and recognize it, I think is a great trend that shows have really started to concentrate more on. So for them to say that, I think was great. Certainly mental health and awareness of mental health issues it was brought to the forefront in COVID. The stress and the depression and the alienation, the isolation, that brought those issues up, and made people much more aware of it. So I'm glad to see that an organization like ILTA says something like that. And
I am too. I think that's another thing they've been smart about. Obviously, they're also requiring attendees to be vaccinated. Which is a pretty, you expect that. And absolutely. They have a lot of great initiatives. They have their DEI initiative. They've done a lot of really great things to try to make it as universal and as welcoming and an industry as possible. And I commend them for that. And
it's one of the other reasons I stay over in Alexandria is because there are AA meetings over there every day, and not in National Harbor. There are a couple in, I forget, there's something that starts with like Oxnard or Oxbluff or something. It's an adjacent town to National Harbor. There's
not
a few
Oxbow,
meetings.
Is it Oxbow?
Oxbow, I forget, something like that. There's a couple meetings there, and of course there's a ton in DC. But again, it's nice to be able to get up in the morning and go to a meeting.
Right.
Like I said, some organizations now are starting to do that on site, which is really good for attendees. Funny story about that. A number of the state bar associations have people who are involved with mental health issues. Right? There's a committee, has different names in different states, and the ABA has a national committee as well that sort of helps with those issues. I used to go over to speak at the Mississippi Bar Association, and the person who ran things over there would do an on-site AA meeting every morning at 7 a.m. in the hotel where and to advertise it, instead of saying AA, which some people are a little hesitant to, the word alcoholic, he would put out a sign in the lobby that said Friends of Bill W. meeting at 7 a.m. in room such and such. Bill W. was one of the founders of AA, Bill Wilson. And and that's a phrase that everybody in the program recognizes. Then they often ask people, "Oh, are you a friend of Bill W?" Yeah, I'm an old friend of Bill W. So he put that sign up there. Well, one morning we walked down, we were astonished to see like about 75 people standing there. Like, what's going? Wow, that's a lot of drunks, man. I didn't know we had that many people in sobriety. And until we started talking to some of the people, and we were chagrined to learn that the incoming president of the Mississippi Bar's name was like Bill Waterston or something.
Right.
And everybody thought it was a reception with the incoming president of the bar. And they were gravely disappointed when they were told they would only be meeting alcoholics instead.
Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah,
hilarious. Yeah,
that was a
that's
good one.
I like putting it that way though, because it's just kind of and like you say, AA members, I know what that means. So I did not know
Yes,
what that means.
yes. Very
But
common when you see somebody at a reception, like if you were at Hilton, they're not drinking. You know, you
Right.
want a beer, I'm going to the bar, you want a beer, I'll take a Diet Coke, go. You know, somebody in the program would say, oh, you're not drinking alcohol. Are you a friend of Bill W's? Because you don't want to yell out in front of 20 people, you're a recovering alcoholic.
Right. Yeah. That's not probably the thing you want to throw out there like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I start out with, I do gin and tonics, and then I just stop adding the gin after a couple of drinks. And it's just like,
there you go.
nobody can tell the difference. It's just tonic.
Yeah.
And it's, it's fine.
Well, that's the other thing is you go to these things, when they're talking about, make sure you don't get overserved. I mean, it's free.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. That's why you have to be careful. You go to a party and they're free booze, and you can get carried away.
And then you're going to leave the reception there and go to a party that a vendor is throwing with more free booze, and all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock at night, and them down.
Exactly. Network. I mean, it's fun to network. It's fun to talk to people. Sometimes you talk business. Sometimes you talk other stuff. That's one of the great things about going to a conference like this. But you have to network responsibly. You have to kind of remember why you're there.
Gail used to say after we had started getting involved in the speaking circuit, and she's after the first big party with you to the relativity parties at Relativity Fest are renowned. They always do it at a big location, a museum or something. Bands and huge, 4 or 5 food courts, and Gail would go, "Wow, where was this stuff when I was drinking?" and I said, "Oh, they had them, honey. They just didn't invite us."
You weren't profitable, right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's I mean, it's always a great time, and it's always great to see people. It's always great to network with people.
Yep.
And I just kind of thought that was kind of amusing yet understandable that they would kind of say, hey, be aware.
Take it easy. Yeah, just take it easy. Exactly. And be aware, as you said. And also that makes it easy for you to attend those morning sessions the next day.
Exactly. Also bring a couple of pairs of shoes. They said, to switch off on. So that's good advice as well. Just kind of remember it's you're in for the long haul for those few days. So
yep. All right. Well, I think we've covered all the high spots. I'm looking forward to it. There's a good buzz about the show. I'm getting a lot of calls and emails, and are you going to be there? I'm looking forward to it. This will be the first big show I've been to. Like I said, I didn't go to Legal Week. I didn't go to ILTA last year, of course, and I didn't go to Legal Week in January. So this will be the first big show that I've attended since COVID. So there'll be people there I haven't seen in a year and a half, 2 years.
Right.
Which is really astonishing when you stop and think about it.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure there will be probably a number of people like in the same situation as you. It is definitely something to look forward to. I'm certainly starting to get a bunch of people pinging me, asking if I'm going and so forth, and starting to set up appointments with people and so forth. So it's always exciting to kind of start lining up some things to meet with people and see people, and then you get there and you run into people that you haven't seen, like you say, in 2+ years. And in person. So it's great, and that's one of the things I'm definitely looking forward to.
Right. Me too. And I actually, having said that, have we seen each other in person in the last 2 years?
We have not. We haven't seen. Probably it's been maybe legal week 2020. Did you go to right before the pandemic hit?
Yes.
Probably. I'm sure we ran into each other there.
Yeah.
So it's probably.
I was always astonished because we went to that legal week, came home. Mardi Gras was that week, so we flew home from New York to go to Mardi Gras to attend Mardi Gras here in town, and then. At the end of that week was the ABA Tech Show. That Wednesday, I jumped on a train and went to Chicago to be, with 800 of my closest friends, wall to wall. And I was astonished. I was in New York, Mardi Gras, and Chicago, the week that the thing was really exploding, and didn't get it. This year, after having all the vaccinations in the world, 2 days after Jazz Fest, I came down with it. So go
well,
figure.
at this point, it's hard to find too many people who haven't had it. No
Who
matter
haven't
how
had it.
protected they, yeah. So
Yeah.
I can definitely.
But you're right. That would be the last time we would have seen each other face to face
Right.
was Legal Week 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've done tons of webinars and other
Done
things.
these, yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're sick of each other online. Let's get together in person, right?
All right, Douglas. Great talking to you as always, and looking forward to seeing you at National Harbor in a few weeks.
All right. Looking forward to it, Tom. And
Take care.
thanks for having me.
Bye bye.